Hello there, listeners. Welcome back to Monster Video, the only movie rental store run by monsters for monsters. I'm the owner of Monster Video and your host again, Uncle Crawly. My zombie coworker David is here again as well.
Hi, everybody.
It's been a little slow since our last episode. We're still waiting for our lucky first customer to show up. Just a reminder, if you have been looking for the store, that you can find us in the abandoned building on the corner of Strode and Myers. Just look for the unmarked stairwell under the broken streetlight and drop on in. Now, obviously, we were hoping to see a few of you in the store by now. Give us a chance to show off the store and our impressive video selection, and maybe chat a while with you. But we understand that these things take time. Even though it has been a bit dead here at the store, David and I have been keeping busy making sure that everything is perfect once we do start getting customers. I've been making some modifications to the store, making sure it's nice and dark and dank. I've also been making some flyers. I've been posting them around town in all the usual places, dark alleyways, the morgue, the condemned insane asylum on the edge of town, just so I cover all my bases. I even tossed a few flyers into an open storm drain, just in case there were any chuds or killer clowns down there who are looking for a video rental store. David, would you like to tell the listeners what you've been up to recently?
Yeah, you can tell them. I'm gonna live that, dude.
My zombie friend here's been working on his own project for the store, and I think you listeners are really going to enjoy this. I'll tell you about it while he wheels it out here. Nowadays, it's easy enough to look up movie reviews on the internet or on your phone with your IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or what have you. But in the early days of video rental stores, there was nothing to tell you how good or bad a movie was. If you were lucky, a store clerk might be able to give you a recommendation. But otherwise, the only information you had about the video was the box it came in. The text on the back might tell you the basic plot of the film, or about the cast or director, but they weren't very trustworthy about telling you how good a movie was. Even the worst movie could have a clever bit of copy promising you a great adventure, or the most dangerous monster ever, but the box text was probably better written than anything that went into the movie's script. Of course, the cover art on the front of the boxes was fantastic in many cases, sometimes more haunting than the film it was drawing you into. The cover art for Dead Alive, or Chopping Mall, or Evil Dead 2 all promised a film full of scares, and rightfully so. But there were also plenty of videos with amazing cover art that just couldn't live up to their hype. Some low-budget monster movies would hire an artist to paint an awe-inspiring interpretation of their creature, when what you got in the actual film was more akin to a rubber puppet on a stick. Needless to say, the great art or write-ups on video boxes did nothing to guarantee you a fulfilling viewing experience. You might find a diamond in the rough when renting an unknown title, but you were more likely to end up with a D-list stinker that you'd regret renting by the time you finished it. We want to make sure that every customer at Monster Video has a great viewing experience, so I had a spark of an idea that would help even the most indecisive monster walk away satisfied. Have you ever been to a carnival, either haunted or not haunted, and seen one of the prize wheels that you could spin to win a prize? I wanted a wheel just like that, but with movies instead of prizes, so any customer could walk in, spin the wheel, and get a great movie suggested to them. I wrote up a list of the top 100 monster movies, as decided by me, of course, and David volunteered to construct the wheel with all the movie names on it. We're even going to use the wheel to pick some of our movies to view for the podcast as well. In fact, the inaugural spin tonight will be our video for this very episode. And here it is. It looks fantastic, David. You truly are a zombie of many talents. Listeners, I wish that you could see the finished project right now. It's very impressive. It's, what, 4 feet wide, David?
Uh-huh.
Of course, it had to be to fit all those movie titles on it. They're all hand-painted with very neat penmanship for a zombie. It's, oh. Does this one say Night of the Lepus, David? And, a five-headed shark over here. These are not the movies from the list I gave you, are they, David?
Well, not exactly.
Not exactly. So where are the movies from the list that I gave you?
I put the wheel up to that first snack back, and I spent some Yum Yum sauce on the list, and I couldn't read it after that.
Mm-hmm. And after you spilt Yum Yum sauce on my list and you couldn't read it anymore, where did you get these movie titles from?
But you got what happens that I just went out of the store and picked up little towels that sound very cool.
You looked through the video shelves and just picked ones that sounded interesting and put them on the wheel. I suppose that explains how Five-Headed Shark got on there. Did any of my original lists get on the wheel at least?
I think a couple of them did.
Well, listeners, it appears that our wheel of monster masterpieces didn't turn out exactly as I had hoped. But we can still find a great video to watch tonight. In fact, I just thought of one of my favorites.
Hey, you're not going to use the wheel?
No, we're not going to use it. We were going to use it, but who knows what sorts of movies we might end up with now. The listeners...
Well, I put a lot of work into it, and some of the movies sound like they'd be very good.
I understand that you worked hard on the wheel, David. I just want to make sure that we're giving our audience the best podcast that we can.
Can we please use the wheel? Please?
Oh, all right. We can spin the wheel for our movie tonight.
Oh, boy.
Listeners, I apologize in advance if tonight's movie isn't up to our usual high standards. But if you've ever had someone give you zombie puppy dog eyes as they ask you for something, you already know why I couldn't say no to David. Well, go on, you built the wheel. Give it its first spin.
All right, here we go.
Tonight's video is going to be... Pirahnaconda.
All right, I'll go get.
Now, listeners, I've never watched this film myself, but you never know when you're going to find your new favorite video. This could be a fantastic monster movie that,
Here you go.
Oh, I'm looking at the Pirahnaconda case now, and it features a blonde woman in a bikini, running from a mouthful of sharp fangs, and there appear to be some explosions going off in the background. I can see why this one caught David's eye. Michael Madsen's in this one. He's been in some very good films. It gives me some hope, I suppose.
The movie's ready.
Listeners, we're going to watch 2012's Pirahnaconda now. You can watch it at home if you have a copy, but be sure to join us after the break as we discuss the movie and talk about what exactly a Pirahnaconda is. David, start the movie.
Here we go.
And we're back, listeners. We just finished watching Pirahnaconda, and we have a lot to discuss. It originally ran on the Sci-Fi Channel, so if you've seen any of their other films, you probably have a good idea of the quality level to expect. There were some dodgy CGI effects, questionable acting choices, and a semi-coherent script. This was executive produced by film legend Roger Corman. As far as the cast goes, we have Michael Madsen, who frequently acts in Quentin Tarantino films, and Rachel Hunter, who's primarily known for modeling, I believe. I don't think I recognized any of the other names in the cast. Our director is Jim Wynorski, who did Chopping Mall, Sorority House Massacre 2, and Ghoulies 4 in the late 80s and early 90s. After that, he moved on to some other genres and directed films like The Bear Wench Project and The House on Hooter Hill. I'm not sure if David has any of those movies included on the wheel. As far as the star of our creature feature, we have the titular Pirahnaconda, whose name is fairly self-explanatory. It's not quite a kaiju, but still a very large hybrid between a piranha and an anaconda, which really seems like an unlikely pairing to me. It's common knowledge that piranhas have no buns, and as the song states, anacondas don't want none unless you got buns, hun. The film takes place in Hawaii, filmed on the island of Kauai. There are tribal legends in that area of guardian water monsters that could be mistaken for a Pirahnaconda, but I've never seen one myself. Listeners, if you live in Hawaii or have ever been to Hawaii and encountered anything like the beast in this film, send us a message at monstervideopod@gmail.com and tell us about your experience. I'm curious if there's any truth behind this film. Now, the film starts out with several scenic helicopter shots of the Hawaiian Islands and an original song, sort of a surf rock tune, called Pirahnaconda 1. Later on, there's also another song entitled Pirahnaconda 2, likely because they didn't pay the songwriter enough to come up with real titles for the songs. We see a helicopter land in some remote area of the island, and Mr. Blonde gets out of it, followed by a bodyguard and a lady who looks like Baroness from G.I. Joe, who's carrying a large video camera. Mr. Blonde tells the copter pilot they'll be right back, and the trio head into the forest towards a waterfall. When they reach the waterfall, they find a nest of large eggs, and Mr. Blonde asks the Baroness to film him handling the eggs. She records him picking up one of the coconut-sized eggs and placing it in a clear container. He tells the camera that once he removes the egg from its nest, it will begin producing a protective green slime. By the water, the bodyguard hears something near the falls, right before we get our first view of Pirahnaconda rising from the water. The huge beast chomps the bodyguard before he can react, leaving only a red mist behind. The red mist thing will happen with every kill in the movie, and I'm not sure quite why. I mean, I'm assuming the Pirahnaconda is eating these people whole based on its size and the fact that it's part anaconda. But even if it's biting them in half, there should be more of a blood spray than a mist. It's probably just a visual choice to make the attacks seem to last longer, since most of the monster attacks last half a second or so and leave no body behind. But really, take a quick bite out of an orange. You get more of a spray or a squirt than a mist. Anyways, Baroness drops her camera and screams right before she is chomped into a red mist as well, and Mr. Blonde dashes off into the woods with his stolen egg. The copter pilot panics when he hears the roar from the forest and starts to take off without his passengers. Unfortunately for him, our monster appears from the jungle and lunges at the chopper, crashing it to the ground and killing the pilot. We suddenly cut to a blonde woman in a bikini getting ready to swim in a jungle pool when her cell phone rings. She hears a rustling in some bushes while she answers the phone and calls out to the bushes, asking who's there. In response, a madman wearing a Spirit Halloween scarecrow mask and a machete leaps out at her. She screams and runs away, but is quickly caught by the scarecrow just before we hear a director call, "Cut!" Now, it turns out we're actually watching the filming of a monster movie within our monster movie. We find out that the blonde actress is named Kimmy, the director is Milo, the film's writer is a lady named Rose, and the scarecrow killer is actually a stuntman named Jack. The crew is filming a slasher picture called Head Chopper 3. At least I think it's a slasher. Possibly undead. He gives off Jason Voorhees vibes, but circa the second Friday the 13th film. Our unmasked slasher, Jack, flirts with Rose and asks her out for drinks when they get back to the hotel. Right after that, a blonde woman with glasses and a healthy set of lungs asks Rose if she's seen the light meter. Rose tells her that she saw it over by the pond, so the blonde woman wanders off into the surrounding trees to look for it. She quickly finds the light meter in a clearing, but as she's wiping it off, Pirahnaconda slithers up to her and catches her unaware. And now, this beast is massive, probably weighing tons, and has a head as tall as a grown man, so I'm not sure how it could sneak up on anyone. But it does, getting close enough to sneeze and spray snake snot onto her cleavage. The blonde screams and tries to run away, but Piranha roars and snaps at the woman. The beast misses, turning her into a red mist, and only bites off one of her feet. She tumbles to the ground, then tries to take cover in a small grove of bamboo stalks. But Pirahnaconda takes another lunge at her, this time leaving behind that trademark red mist. The next scene cuts back to the hotel as we see Jack and Rose relaxing poolside. So apparently no one noticed the blonde girl missing before they headed back, and no one on the filming crew heard her screams or the sound of a snake the size of a school bus moving through the jungle and roaring. Rose is still working at her laptop and says that while researching the location, she found out a bit of Polynesian folklore about Kipolo, or the river devil, which she says has been seen for hundreds of years and was seen as recently as just last week. Jack says, "You don't believe in that, do you?" And Rose says that she does. She believes in the Polynesian folklore creature that she just read about minutes before, even though she hasn't seen a single shred of proof of its existence. Rose is a very open-minded woman. I've met actual monsters, and run a video store for monsters, and I am a monster. And even I doubt that Pirahnaconda exists. We cut to another jungle location as a woman pulls her boat up to a dock, then walks to a waterfall, which is possibly the same waterfall as the one from the first scene. As we'll get to later, the locations in this movie get very confusing as it goes on. The woman strips down to her bikini and wades into the pool at the waterfall base, then freezes as she hears something, moments before she's devoured into a red mist by Pirahnaconda. That's it. That's the entire scene and the last we'll see of her in the film. We cut back to the hotel again, and Head Chopper's lead actress, Kimmy, has run into a couple of her fans by the pool. Or at least, the man in the couple is a fan, as he gushes he's seen all her films, even Hillbilly Hostage. The superfan's girlfriend, Jamie, another busty blonde in a bikini, is less than impressed, but still takes a picture of Kimmy and her fan together. There's also a shady-looking fellow relaxing by the pool who seems to be keeping tabs on the film crew. We finally see where Michael Madsen got off to with his stolen egg, as he walks through some tall grass and comes across an abandoned mill. He checks a few of the rusty vehicles around the mill looking for a ride, and Rachel Hunter steps out from behind a truck pulling a gun on him. She takes him back to the rest of her group, a band of criminals led by a man named Pike. Mr. Blonde tells the group that he's a professor of herpetology at the University of Hawaii, and that they're all in danger because of the huge creature that's coming to kill them, calling it an evolutionary mutation and a dangerous killer. They laugh at him for believing in the river devil legend and take him hostage. Rachel searches his bag and finds the egg container, now half full of green jello, but puts it back in his satchel for later. And now we cut to another group of women in the jungle. This time, a pair of researchers looking for a rare bloom with medicinal powers, and their guide. They find the flowers in question, and the pair harvest them into cheap-looking Tupperware containers as the guide steps away off the path. A moment later, we hear the guide scream. The pair of scientists try to gather the blooms faster, only to find Pirahnaconda's coils encircling them. They both scream and are turned into red mist as the Pirahnaconda chomps them both. This is the second group we've had introduced in the film, only to have them eaten minutes later, and as far as I can tell, they have no other connection to the main story, other than to increase the body count of the film. We cut back to Rose, Jack, and Kimmy driving in a van as they return to the filming location in the jungle. And when they arrive, someone mentions that Deb, the blonde who was devoured by Pirahnaconda the previous day, didn't show up to set this morning. That's the only thing said about her, so apparently no one on this film crew gets too worried when their co-worker goes missing. We get to see some more filming of Head Chopper as Kimmy and another bikini girl run through the jungle, and Head Chopper steps in front of them holding a severed head that moans for help. This looks to be a CGI after effect and not a practical effect, so we're watching them film the scene, but somehow we're also seeing the CGI special effects as they're filming the scene. Anyways, the girls both scream and the director yells cut, telling the not Kimmy bikini girl that she needs to improve her screams. She wanders off towards the pond practicing her lines when she stumbles across Pirahnaconda. She screams again, and much more believably this time, and runs away. But twist! She runs into a second Pirahnaconda. This one is yellowish, and the other's a bit more green, but not so much that you can tell them apart too easily. The two huge beasts snarl and roar at each other as they fight over their meal, and then both lunge at the actress, each getting half of her as she's turned into a red mist. And somehow, again, no one from the film crew hears any of this happening, even though there are two giant Pirahnacondas mere feet away. Just out of range of the actress's screams, Stuntman Jack is talking to the film's pyrotechnician, and he shows Jack the C4 and blasting caps he brought along for the explosive effects of the film. A moment later, the director walks by, letting the crew know that one of the film's financiers has pulled out and they need to stop filming. Back at the hotel, Jamie and her superfan boyfriend are hanging out in the hot tub, and the guy suggests going on a hike to the uninhabited side of the island. Jamie says it might not be safe, and he says, with a huge wink to the audience, "It's Hawaii. Nothing bad happens in Hawaii." I put my money on him being dead in the next 10 minutes of the film. Leaving the filming location, Jack, Rose, and Kimmy are in one vehicle, and the director and pyrotechnician guy are driving behind them as they head back to the hotel together. They come across a stranded vehicle blocking part of the road, and when they get out to help, find out that it's a trap as the gunmen we saw from the abandoned mill earlier take the crew hostage. The bad guys shoot the director in the foot for trying to be a hero, and Pyro Guy throws down a blasting cap as a distraction so he and Jack can run into the trees to escape. A couple of the gunmen take chase after them, but one is quickly eaten by a Pirahnaconda, and the other loses track of Jack and Pyro after they hit him with a branch. The surviving gunman does find a video camera in the jungle and brings it back to the road. The film crew is loaded into the kidnapper's vehicle, and they're brought back to the abandoned mill and placed in the same holding area as the professor. Our hotel couple did end up going for their hike, and as they walk through the jungle, the blonde comments that she's sweating like a pound puppy. Is this something people say? Or anything anyone has ever said? Are pound puppies known for being especially sweaty? Anyway, their hike ends up at a beach, and they decide to go for a swim. We see them splash around in ankle-deep water, and then Jamie's boyfriend decides he needs to go water the plants and says he'll be right back. And of course, since he says he'll be right back, Pirahnaconda catches him in the trees with his pants down, but does give him a chance to let out a Wilhelm scream before turning him into a red mist. Again, his girlfriend hears none of this and goes for another swim while she waits for him. The gunmen watch the video on the camera they found, and we see it's the footage from the beginning of the movie showing the professor in the egg nest, his guard being devoured by Pirahnaconda, and the blood splattering the camera as Pirahnaconda goes after the Baroness. Here's where I tried to make a mental map of the island, and it gets a bit confusing. In the opening scene, they take a helicopter to the waterfall, and it looks pretty remote, which would explain the need to fly. Then the woman in the motorboat reached the falls by docking in the nearby river. The falls are also close enough to the filming location that Pirahnaconda was hunting there twice in 2 days, and now the camera was found a short jog from the road, meaning that the secret lair of the massive monster is minutes away by foot from the road. So why would you bother hiring a helicopter to reach it? I'm getting a bit distracted. The criminals watch the video, realizing the professor was telling the truth about the river monster and that the egg in his bag could be worth quite a bit of money. A stuntman Jack and the pyro guy meet back at their van but realize it's been disabled by the gunman, so they decide they're going to track the tire marks of the kidnapper's van back to the mill to find their friends. Back at the criminals' hideout, the professor tells the film crew that when he was a child, his father and a crew from an oil company disappeared in the jungle, and many other people disappeared too around the same time. But suddenly the disappearances stopped. And now 50 years later, a tour group disappeared last week, and he tells them that there's something big, something bad, and something that likes to eat people in the jungle. He doesn't get a chance to tell them more as the gunmen take them away to film a hostage video. The leader of the criminals wears a skull mask as he tells his demands to the camera. After filming, Rose tells a guard that she has to pee, so he walks her to the edge of the trees. She tells him she'd do anything to keep her friend safe and kisses the guard, but then knees the lone gunman in the crotch and dashes off into the jungle. Another gunman, with a white beard and an 80-yard voice like Popeye, offers to run after her as long as he can wear the skull mask while he does it. Rose runs across a shallow river as Beardy chases her with the machete, repeatedly yelling, "You're going to die," as he runs. After reaching the other side, Rose slips and falls, finding herself in a nesting area of Pirahnaconda eggs. So either this is another nest of eggs of these huge undiscovered beasts, or the waterfall is also right next to the abandoned mill. Rose touches one of the eggs and finds it slimy, even though the professor said at the start of the film that they only get slimy once you remove them from the nest. Beardy catches up to Rose at the nest and is about to hit her with the machete when Pirahnaconda coils around him and chomps him down, mask and all. Rose screams and runs from Pirahnaconda, only to end up back at the mill. At the same time, Jack and Pyro arrive at the mill after following the tire tracks, and spot the crew being escorted back into the building. Inside, Rose tells the group about falling into the nest of eggs and seeing the Pirahnaconda. She's also trying to wipe egg slime from her cleavage, even though she didn't have any on her back at the nest, only getting it on her hand. The professor tells them that the beast is an evolutionary line jumper and a random mutation of enormous size. And I don't think that the professor of herpetology knows exactly how evolution works. He also says it evolved to avoid detection, that will feed and then go underground and hibernate for decades. I have to wonder how he knows any of this, since finding the nest at the start of the film seems to be the first time he's actually seen any part of a Pirahnaconda in person. Also, for a beast that's evolved to avoid detection, it seems like Pirahnacondas should roar less while they're on the hunt. Outside, Pyro distracts a guard while Jack sneaks up behind him and snaps his neck, and we find out that Jack was a Marine before he became a stuntman. After that, Pyro starts setting C4 charges around the outside of the mill, while Jack slips inside to rescue the film crew. Getting into the mill to rescue them is super easy, barely an inconvenience, and after they get out of the mill, he looks for a vehicle to escape in. The director takes a dead guard's machine gun and says he'll cover while the rest escape. The sounds of the shootout as they escape attract the attention of the yellow Pirahnaconda, and it slithers in quickly, gulping up Rachel Hunter while she unloads her rifle into it. Pyro sets off the C4 charges once the crew is in the van, blowing up the mill, but then gets shot dead before he can get into the van with them. Somehow, some of the gunmen still saw him as a priority target, even though they were also being attacked by a giant snake fish monster. The rest of the film crew drives off in the van, but Pirahnaconda chases after them, because the bag with the egg is in the vehicle they chose to escape in. We learn that Pirahnaconda can sense where its egg is, so it can rescue it. But if that's the case, why didn't it just eat the professor as soon as he ran off with the egg, instead of going after the helicopter? The director takes advantage of the chaos of the explosion and limps into the forest to get away. As the crew's van races away, we hear the song titled Pirahnaconda 2, and see Pirahnaconda speed slithering behind the van, as fast as the speeding vehicle. The van has to stop suddenly when they see the green Pirahnaconda coiled up in the road in front of the van, blocking their escape because apparently Pirahnacondas know how roads work. And then the lead gunman, chasing the crew on an ATV, takes out a rocket launcher. He fires the rocket at the van because, of course, they are somehow still the most important target in this situation. But the rocket misses the van and hits the green Pirahnaconda instead. It wounds the monster, but the yellow Pirahnaconda shows up again, and the two begin fighting for some reason, and it allows the film crew to escape in their van. However, they run out of gas a few miles down the road due to a bullet hole in their gas tank, and have to set off into the jungle on foot. The lead gunman returns to his crew and says that the monster's dead, but he must have an incredibly short attention span, because unless he turned away as soon as the rocket hit the green Pirahnaconda, he would have seen that it survived, or at the very least that there was a second Pirahnaconda in the area. He tells his men that they're going to hunt down the movie crew until they're all dead, because he wants revenge on them for Pirahnaconda eating his girlfriend, I guess. The director, Milo, limps his way through the jungle onto a beach and finds Jamie, the blonde girl who is on a hiking trip with her boyfriend. So, on a map of all these film locations, the beach is also close enough to the mill that a man with an injured foot could walk between them in a very short amount of time. Jamie tries calling her boyfriend's phone since he disappeared, and in a bit taken from Jurassic Park 3, we hear the phone ringing from inside the Pirahnaconda. Milo and Jamie don't hear it, though, and even though Milo tries to warn her, the girl starts walking into the jungle, calling out for her boyfriend. So is this a third Pirahnaconda at the beach location? The other two were just back at the mill, and this Pirahnaconda is the same one that was here earlier because it has the boyfriend's phone inside of it. And it doesn't seem likely that one would have gone to the mill and then come back here directly after. I'm not sure this movie knows how many Pirahnacondas there are. Wandering through the jungle, Jamie stumbles upon the Pirahnaconda egg nest near the waterfall, and Milo tries to warn her again, but she says he's crazy and starts stomping on all the eggs in the nest and bashing them with a stick. Listeners, if you find a nest of eggs of any sort in nature, don't stomp on them or hit them with a stick. Most likely they belong to some innocent wildlife creature, and even if they do belong to some sort of huge man-eating cryptid, you're only going to make the mother angry with you. The mother of these eggs shows up and chomps down on Milo, biting him off at the ankles, leaving behind a red mist in both his feet. The Pirahnaconda then knocks Jamie out of the nest and takes a chomp of her, this time biting its victim in half and leaving behind everything below the belly button. As the movie goes on, the Pirahnacondas are eating less and less of their victims, and I suspect they may be getting full. It's important as a monster not to gorge yourself on victims, especially if you have more hunting to do. You don't want to have to run while feeling overfull. Back in the jungle, the film crew has happened upon the boat of the girl from way earlier in the film who was swimming by the waterfall. They also find the egg in the professor's satchel, though now there's no slime in the container, but that seems more likely to be a prop error. And they figure out the Pirahnaconda must be tracking it somehow. Stuntman Jack says they need to go back to the pyrotechnics van to get explosives so he can make a trap for Pirahnaconda. They make it back to the pyrotechnics van, which is now at a beach even though they left it on the road before, and Jack constructs an explosive device from C4. The gunmen on ATVs find them at the beach somehow and open fire on the crew, hitting Jack in the arm and attracting Pirahnaconda once again. The green Pirahnaconda, who did not die, gulps up all the gunmen as Jack and Rose run into the jungle. The professor runs off with the egg, and Kimmy tries to grab the explosives from the van. Quickly cleaning up the gunmen, Pirahnaconda attacks the van and eats the actress before she can trigger the explosive. Jack finds a regurgitated bad guy, takes his handgun, and quips, "Looks like the kitty spit up a hairball." But it feels like a bit of a mixed metaphor since it's a giant snake and not a cat. It also seems to support my theory that the Pirahnacondas are getting overfull, as they're now binging and purging. Jack tells Rose to run for the boat, but isn't going to follow her, because things never go well when you put a Jack and a Rose on a boat together. Rose gets to the boat, finding the professor there already. Pirahnaconda's in hot pursuit, so Mr. Blonde takes the boat out onto the river, trying to speed away. Rose spots the egg in his bag, and there's a quick tussle between them, but Rose yanks on the steering wheel, causing him to drop the egg overboard. The professor turns the boat around and tries to fish the egg out of the water, but Rose pushes him overboard, grabs the egg herself, and then speeds off, leaving him in the river to be devoured by Pirahnaconda. If Rose knows Pirahnaconda wants the egg, and that's the whole reason that it's chasing them, why doesn't she just leave it there? So we can have one more climactic encounter before the credits roll. Rose and Jack meet up at the shore, where Jack has one of the gunman's ATVs and a convenient package of explosives he found as well, and then drives back to the original waterfall because they say they know she'll be there. How do they know Pirahnaconda will be at the waterfall when this whole movie it's been chasing after the egg that they have with them? I don't know. They park the ATV at the top of the waterfall, and the yellow Pirahnaconda rises up out of the water to meet them. Jack puts the explosives into the egg container with the egg and throws it at Pirahnaconda, who catches it in their mouth. Jack and Rose jump off the top of the waterfall and dive into the pool below just as the bomb goes off, exploding the Pirahnaconda's head into a rain of bloody chunks, an explosion so nice that they show it to us 3 different times from 3 different angles. Jack and Rose climb out of the water and kiss before we see a blur of the green Pirahnaconda fill the screen. After that, we just get a shot of the waterfall before the credits roll, so I guess they're saying the green Pirahnaconda ate them in the end? I'll go with that, as it's a win for the monster, and also lessens the chances we'll have to watch Pirahnaconda 2. As far as lessons to be learned from the movie, I'd say that if you're a nesting mother or father with a clutch of eggs to guard, take the loss of one egg if it means you can still guard the rest of the nest. If Pirahnaconda hadn't chased after the one egg for the whole film, they would have still been alive at the end of the movie, and the rest of the eggs wouldn't have been smashed by a blonde in a bikini. Also, there's the whole not overeating thing while you're still chasing down your victims. David, did you have any thoughts on the lessons of the film?
Yeah, I think that Pirahnaconda would be a lot safer if he would have kept going after the bikini girls instead of trying to hunt down gunmen.
That is true. A human is much less likely to pull a weapon on you if all they're wearing is a bikini. Well, there you have it, listeners. Not a great film by any means, but lessons can be learned from even the worst monster movies if you dig deep enough. I hope that you'll join us again next episode, when we will not be using David's wheel to choose a film. But hopefully we'll have a customer by then we can have as a guest, chat with, and pick a movie tailored just for them. Perhaps one of you lucky listeners will be our first customer. If you do stop in, mention this episode and we'll give you a bag of gummy Pirahnacondas. Actually, they're just the heads of Swedish fish stitched onto gummy worms, but it's close enough. If you can't visit us in person, visit us online. The email is monstervideopod@gmail.com. monstervideopod on all your social media, too. Let us know if you have any comments, questions, or even suggestions for future monster movies to discuss. Until next time, listeners, from your Uncle Crawly, stay safe and stay scary.
Goodbye, everybody.